Mr. Satell, I believe and have believed for a very long time that you are one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim. Your commitment to social responsibility has been culture shaping. You are changing the world for the better, one institution, one group, one individual, one child at a time. Your support for the Technion, for the University of Connecticut, for MIT, the Satell Institute, and this synagogue are real-time examples of your vision, selflessness, leadership, and integrity. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all you have done and for all you will continue to do. So with those thoughts in mind, it is my honor and privilege to present you with this plaque. It says the Pillars of Israel Award, and it's got the priestly blessing, and it says Ed Satell, visionary and humanitarian.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
You just put that in your pocket. We're going to take a couple of minutes to answer. Why don't you want to sit in this chair? No, that's fine. Never mind. It might be easier for you to see the screen, but oh well. Okay, doesn't matter.
I may not be a lot of things, but I'm definitely not a rabbi.
We'll talk about that later. We have some questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience if you want to continue asking Ed some questions. I have always been fascinated by your disciplined and nuanced ability to maximize the impact of your quiet philanthropy. You developed and you adhere to 5 key giving areas. Would you share why and how you developed these and elaborate on your long-term approach?
Sure. I started joining boards. I was privileged. I was excited when people asked me to join their board. And I did one, and I got involved. And I did 2. I'm pretty sure I was doing 4. And I had to ask myself, what am I doing? Am I just saying yes when people ask me? I said, that's no way to do it. What's that? Okay.
Yeah, that's not the microphone.
I said, I must think about this, and I have to have a philosophy. And my philosophy has to be, if it's in my philosophy, I will support it. And if it's not in my philosophy, then I will not. I understood immediately that I was not Bill Gates. I didn't have nearly as much money as he did. So I couldn't give to everything. So the question was, who would I say yes to and who would I say no to? And I thought about that, and I fairly quickly came to a conclusion that there were 5 areas of interest that I had, and I would be supportive of those 5 areas. And the others, they were fine, but they were for others to do and for others to enjoy. My 5 areas first was disadvantaged children. I think every child is entitled to a happy childhood. And I think it makes a big difference. So I've supported many programs, or funded many programs, normally as the lead sponsor. And the reason that it lead sponsor is because I don't do these things unless I have an agreement with the president of the organization on the goals. We've all seen what's happened when people give money emptily to major colleges, and it ends up not being used the way you wanted it to do. Well, I had understood some examples of that early on. And I knew if I was going to go ahead and be involved, I wanted it to end up where I had in mind. So I always made my arrangements had to be with the president of the organization, and we signed off. And I was always going to be involved. I was not going to just give the money. They had to give me annual reports. And I didn't interfere. I was very cooperative as long as we were together with our beginning principles. So who did I support? There was one mentioned there, the sending teenagers to Israel. We had a whole year program to teach them leadership. We recognize that in the Jewish community, since Jews have been accepted so much broadly, that they're now able to go ahead and be heads of organizations that are not Jewish organizations. So there was a need for more who would want to be in Jewish organizations. And so we developed a year-long program with the leaders of Philadelphia, where they would meet with them, talk with them, idea exchange with them, and I would send them on 2 trips a year, one to Washington, and then they go to Washington, they would be automatically accepted as a group into the White House. It was part of the head of Jewish affairs at the White House, so they would always meet with our group because they had such a great reputation for asking questions. And Nancy Pelosi, who was not a friend of mine, but liked what we were doing and would invite all our group to have lunch or breakfast in the Capitol Hill with her guest. We would have senators and congressmen come to speak and address these kids and respond to their questions. And we would keep getting them back every year because they were so enchanted with the questions that the kids asked. And I sent over 200 kids to Israel that way over a period of a few years. Also in Israel, there's it's not an orphanage, but it's a place for children whose parents are probably in a different country. Maybe it was Russia, maybe it was in Argentina, maybe it was in some other places that the parents couldn't get out, but they wanted their kids to get out. And it was an organization called Yemen Ord in the Carmel Mountains. Mm-hmm. And they trained these kids, taught these kids, so they became wonderful human beings. These were immigrant kids. And they've had a great success story, and the head of it was named Educator of the Year in Israel. There was another group that I also have been very attached to called the Jaffa Institute. There we take 4,000 kids a week that we work with, often who don't, by the way, it's Arab kids, Palestinian kids, Jewish kids, doesn't matter what the background is. They're in Jaffa, they're in that area, and they give them after-school programs, they give them healthy lunches, they have a high school special for them there, and they integrate with each other, and they learn to about things with each other.
That's wonderful.
I have many more that I have been involved with, and it's always around cohort programs that bring people together under a leadership concept that we are very familiar with. The second area of interest was children of promise. Now that's different than disadvantaged kids. That's children from good families, good areas. And we found that they got in just as much trouble as everybody else. I won't ask you to raise hands here, but some of you probably have kids who you gave a terrific background to, and they maybe became alcoholics or drug addicts or did something else that wasn't so good. It's not unusual. And it's not unusual for people with good backgrounds to waste it and to get into trouble. So I did programs for children of promise. This included kids who were, we adopted an inner city school. Colin Powell, who talked me into this, I heard him give a speech about the minority kids. He said, you know, maybe we can't help the older ones, they're too far gone, but we can't give up on the younger ones. And I'd like every company to go ahead and to sponsor a disadvantaged school in this way, set up a safe, structured after-school program that you pay for, that the kids attend, and so what they learned between 9 and 3 was not unlearned between 3 and 6 before the parents get home. Number 2, they need to, many of them are never around a healthy adult. Many of them never knew anybody who went to college. Many of them, they didn't know anybody successful except the bookie on the corner or the drug salesman. He said, I would like you to get your people in your company, healthy adults, to mentor these kids one-on-one. Each one would have one. And I said, I know how to do this. But I got involved, the United Way was running it. And I went with the United Way, and I listened to them, and I thought all they were interested in was publicity. So I said, I'm out of here. And when I said I'm out of here, I went into the street and in an area, and I saw Mayor Rendell. And I said to him, you know, what Colin Powell talked about, I would do, but only on one condition. He said, what's your condition? I said, I don't want any publicity. I think publicity can ruin these things. People play up to it. And he said, I'll send the school board out. I'll get in touch with the school board, they'll come out and see it. They came out and saw me. I did they loved it. We've had a 25-year relationship. And Colin Powell came up to see it, and he was amazed at what it was, and cheerleading it all the way. My third area was community. And so go ahead and I'm not a building person. I don't like doing buildings, but I did a few. When the Constitution Center came to Philadelphia, was going to be built, I said, that is not going to be built without me participating in it. I am grateful for what our founding fathers did. I am grateful to have been born in the USA. I owe the country something, and I would participate in that. I also did the National Jewish Museum. I also did the Museum of the American Revolution. It's the only museum that tells the story of the American Revolution from beginning to end. And I would do community activities. That was my third. Fourth area was basic research. This is a very interesting story. I got on a board called Coriell Medical Research Institute. When I was a youngster growing up, every parent was scared to death that the kids would get polio. And some of you who are near my age recognize that. And I thought that Salk had solved the polio problem. And I learned when I served on the Coriell board that it wasn't Salk. It was Dr. Coriell, who was a pediatric researcher at Children's Hospital. And he is the one who discovered what the cause was the polio. You cannot make a drug if you don't know what the cause is. That fascinated me, that it wasn't Salk, it was Dr. Coriell, a basic researcher, and what basic researchers like, people like Hytham are included in this, and that is they want to introduce new knowledge to the world. That's their dream in life, to create new knowledge that does something good. So in any event, I met Dr. Coriell. I served on his board. He was a very humble fellow. And when Dr. Salk read about his work, he read about it. In those days, they didn't patent it, they didn't copyright it, so they could take it as their own. Today's world, they do copyright. You heard Hytham together with Hebrew University, so they got the rights to it. But for him, it was just a gift to mankind, because they hadn't done that at that time. I was so impacted by that I got involved in basic research, which led to my program at MIT, which led to my program with the president of Tecton, who would come to me and when they had a problem and would say, would you do this? And one of the things they were this program with MIT, they take the top 10 PhDs in Israel. They already have their PhD, and they would nominate them to go to MIT for 4 years. And they were trying to raise so much money other places, they were having trouble here. And so he asked me if I would do it. So I put up 70% of the money for that. And I'll tell you why I did it. I was humbled. I'm not a science major. Hytham never wakes up and calls me at 11 o'clock at night to solve a problem. He's a scientist. I'm a helper. Not with science, but with business and making things work and trying to get people to the right place. Well, that was how I got involved in basic science. And when the president of Tecton, who I was very close to, he asked me to sponsor this MIT program, and I thought, wow, I could be developing the new Nobel Prize winners for the world.
Last question.
Okay. Just tell me about one. My fifth area is heritage. That's where you fit in. Oh, back to you.
I know you believe in takeaway. There are parts of every meeting that you chair, and you have takeaways. What would you like to see tonight's takeaway be for us? Sorry, and this audience.
Well, I'll mention two. I believe the biggest problem going on in the world today is the failure to support the rule of law. Politicians who normally would be nice people take advantage of whatever there is and don't follow the rule of law. We're seeing some very massive things in that area. Government agencies have tried to turn to become much more powerful. And then you got evil people like Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini and some others who will kill people. That we have to have the rule of law. We have to stop that. We have to be on that side. We cannot be forgiving when people kill others. I have come to a conclusion. When somebody says they want to kill you, you ought to listen to them. So I think rule of law is one takeaway. That is all of ours. No matter what our politics is, make sure the rule of law is being followed. That's what made the United States great. It didn't matter if your name was Schwartz or Sullivan, you got equal treatment in the courts. And we need to go back to that. And we need to take that earnestly. Power is no good if it doesn't have the rule of law. Second takeaway is to feel a sense of gratitude. Too much negativity, too much blaming. I feel every day gratitude that I was born in the USA. Love the country, and I feel proud to give back. I grew up, I was 5 years old when they bombed Pearl Harbor. 5 years and 6 months. And I understood what was going on. And I had a couple of cousins who went into the Army. And everybody signed up for the Army. Joe DiMaggio signed up for the Army. Everybody wanted to sign up for the Army to support us at these times. To me, it's a sense of gratitude that we must think we, not just me. There's too much thinking about me and money and what have you, and not working for a better world. And all of us are dependent on other people. And so that's, if you said take home, I think giving back to the community is very important. It's your community. Every community has needs. Every community is short of money for certain things. Schools are short, kids are short, sick people are short. There's lots of different opportunities. So when I set up the Satell Institute, it's a CEO organization. You have to be the CEO. Could be a regional CEO, but you had to be the chief decision maker. And I didn't charge any dues. So they weren't suspicious that I was lining my own pockets. I put up money for an endowment that paid all the expenses. But they had to contribute they had to contribute a 4-year gift totaling $100,000 or more to a nonprofit. And they said it couldn't be done. In our area in Philadelphia, every major company is now a member. Every sports team is a member. Every bank is a member. And not a single bank in our area gave 4-year gifts. They'd only give 1-year gifts. You know why they only gave 1-year gifts? Because they were worried about a lean time and they didn't want to be responsible for commitment. And I came back very simply that you can't run your company on a 1-year financial cycle, and neither can a nonprofit. So you can actually hurt them by 1-year gifts, that you need to give multi-year gifts. And we sold them. And we had CEO conferences. And at our CEO conferences, we just had the 2 global one in IA. We had the head of Microsoft medical division, which is huge, and also the guy who runs AI for good for the United Nations. They came, and they were thrilled to come, thrilled to be there, and because they knew that everybody in the room had to give a minimum of $100,000 to a nonprofit, they chose which one we don't choose. And many of them give to 2, 3, 4. Many of them give much more than the $25,000. Our average gift is $301,000. Wow. And we hope that's going to be growing. And we're spreading to other cities.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank Mr. Satell. Would you, Ed?
What? You know, I made a pledge when I got involved here. I didn't expect to get involved. When they decided they wanted to build a new temple and came to me, I said, I'll give a gift, but it's not my temple, it's your temple, so you do it. I thought they did a wonderful job. They worked very hard. They had a lot of enthusiasm, but they just couldn't get near where they needed to be. They're somewhere around 40 or 50%. And Barry Coe suggested to me that they were thinking about giving everybody their money back because it wouldn't happen. And at that time, I thought about that. I thought about the hard work so many people did, the terrific things they did, and they just didn't have the capacity to get there. So at that time, I stepped forward and did what I chose to do. And I have been so rewarded by seeing this community grow, by seeing this community come together, by seeing this become not just city, but a community center. And not only used by Jewish people, but by other organizations. Because we have the space to do it, and they made available. And you were a group that was not really known or respected or had, I know the question I got from Barry when he interviewed me about Peter, the last question he asked me says, you know, we're a small group. We want to get along with everybody. How good is Peter ecumenically? I said, well, if it's ecumenical you're looking for, you got the best. And you have... But you have joined them. It was such a thrill for me last night to hear from so many of you where you've been, what you do, and what a great community you have made it. So I want to thank you. But I made a pledge at that time, and I made two pledges. One was a pledge that's been taken care of, and another one that was to be done after my death. I believe organizations need to have an endowment, not just current dues, but they need to have an endowment that will give them some income every year, give them the stability of that. So I pledged $500,000 to that endowment, which was supposed to be paid at my death. But I've lived too long. So
take your time. I'm very busy. I'm very busy. Take your time.
And I decided I'd rather not have people cheering for my death. So this is, I think, the third $100,000 installment.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's a little note says on there specifically for the endowment.
I'm going to give it to Barbara right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank Mr. Satell. And his wife, Sima, his family, Regina, thank you all for being here.